Hey everyone, Luke here from Men's Room Shockwave. We do shockwave therapy for men with erectile dysfunction. And I wanted to talk to you today just about an interesting call that I'd had earlier in the week from someone with very low libido. So let's get into it. So what is libido? What is it being affected by? And, does it matter if it dwindles with age? Is it likely to be the cause of your erectile dysfunction, or is it just kind of like one of the components in this slightly complicated picture? So libido itself, is a word that not everyone knows what it means, but it basically is just sex drive, okay? So like, how much appetite do you have for sex? Now, the men that I've spoken to in the past who say they have low libido, it's not like, oh, it takes me a while to like get in the mood and I used to fancy it a bit, but now it's not. It's like the dudes that have really low libido, they're like, I could see my wife, with no clothes on, and it's like she's a man now. It's like there's absolutely nothing stirring, and to the point actually of like the idea being slightly repulsive to them. That's the kind of situation that a lot of men find themselves in. Now, they can remember, it wasn't that long ago that they were super attracted to their wife. And they can kind of intuitively understand that it's not about their wife's body changing or anything like that. It's very much them and something which has happened with them that is now just taken away that desire and actually turned it into more of a kind of repulsion. So I hear this from a lot of guys that have low libido. And that's a kind of, if that's something that you're feeling in yourself, then you need to start to look into why that might be. Now, you may or may not know this, but testosterone is the main driver for libido. So men tend to have higher testosterone levels, and then they typically go down a little bit with age, but it's not necessarily a normal thing for a man to just have a dwindling of testosterone, which leads them to just be completely absent of any sexual desire. So they really should be able, in a normal, healthy man, to continue to have a sex drive, right until the day you die. For a lot of older guys, that is absolutely the case. So you don't have to accept that it's just age. You don't have to accept that that's just a part of your life which is kind of going away. There is absolutely stuff that you can do to try and look into it. So I'm just going to outline a little bit for you now. Now, as a shockwave therapy clinic, we treat vascular erectile dysfunction. We don't treat low testosterone. So this isn't anything that specifically I can help you with. I want to be able to help everyone. So that's why I'm putting this video out. And for a lot of guys, actually, they'll have a little bit of a low testosterone problem and they'll have some vascular stuff. So it might be actually that there's some crossover, in which case what we do could benefit you. But for a lot of people, if this is your sole problem, we're not going to be the solution for it. But in the future, if you get something wrong with blood vessels, then we might be the solution. But for now, let's just talk about you and testosterone. So I'm keeping this fairly simple. It's simple. It's not supposed to be like a proper science lesson. This is just like practical advice for what guys can do, specifically in the UK as well at the moment, because there's going to be different things on offer in different countries. But yeah, if you're someone who's noticed that your libido, your sex drive has really, really dropped, then the first place to be looking is a blood test. And you can get those done in this country on the NHS. Most GPs are going to be pretty good about that if you can explain your symptoms to them. Now, there'll be other things which they'll be looking for symptomatically to try and indicate that maybe testosterone's low. And, the more indicators for that, the more likely they are to do a blood test for you. So other things we're looking for are just general low energy levels, fatigue and just, poor mood, loss of muscle mass. So we're really noticing that strength and muscle mass is dropping, and increased adipose tissue, because that body composition is changing as well. You're not going to be burning fats as effectively with lower testosterone and less muscle on your body. So if you've got that, if you're low in energy, if you're starting to look a bit doughy and you've got no sex drive, then they're probably going to do a blood test. Now, when they do a blood test, they're going to give you some normal ranges, and I'm going to pop those up on the screen so you can see what the normal ranges are. But I don't like to obsess about the ranges with people, because the reality is that I've spoken to tons of people and they'll kind of say, well, I've got all these symptoms, but I had a blood test and they told me I'm normal range. So what do I do now? And you can also get people that have a blood test and they're very low on the range, but they've got no symptoms. So I don't think that people should be overly focused on what these ranges are. These are the norms, but people absolutely exist as outliers. So what I would say is, if you've got a really good GP and you're getting some help with the endocrinologist and they say, you know what, based on your symptoms and this blood work, we've maybe got a bit of a problem here, let's try something. I would be open to it, fundamentally looking at the symptoms and not worrying as much about the blood work. If you get someone that says, I'm going to ignore all your symptoms because your blood work looks fine, then I would definitely go and get a second opinion, because you should not have all the symptoms of low testosterone and be ignored for potential treatments just because your blood work looks normal. There is still a massive scope to be able to help you with treatment. So I would just suggest getting a second opinion or going private if you've just been within the NHS thus far. So once you've made a decision based on the blood work and all your symptoms that you might want to look into some treatment, then testosterone replacement therapy is a much more mainstream treatment now. So the way that works is that naturally within the body you would usually produce testosterone in the testicles. That's the same place that you essentially produce your sperm. Now, if you are not worried about having any more kids, and this isn't a blanket thing, but it's absolutely got to be a serious consideration for people. If you're not worried about having any more kids, then essentially if you replace the testosterone that your body previously made, sounds like it might have been quite low, but whatever. Let's say for argument's sake, there was still a bit getting produced. If you replace that, then now you're going to produce even less in your body, but it doesn't matter. You don't need to produce it because you're bringing it in externally and you're injecting testosterone. And you can still get all the benefits of testosterone, the muscle increase, the increased sex drive, the increased energy and everything like that, without actually producing any yourself. But then you are kind of on it at that point. It's not necessarily a lifetime and there are ways to get off it, but really once you stop producing it and you go somewhere else and start injecting it instead, then you're kind of stuck with that. The other really strong consideration, like I mentioned with children, is that if you are thinking about having kids, you will not produce sperm if you're not producing testosterone. So if you're injecting testosterone, that won't mean that you continue to produce sperm. So that's a really strong consideration, and massively for, like the young guys that, jump on steroids because they want to get, big and jacked and everything like that, is a really stupid thing to do if they're hoping to have kids in the future, because it can really mess everything up. So yeah, if you do decide that you want to do something like TRT, then there's plenty of people in the UK that are going to be able to help you with that. They'll normally sort of start you on a slightly lower dose, see if symptomatically things change, see if things start to improve, and if not, maybe you can go slightly higher. There are caveats, so if you're a prostate cancer patient, then they would usually wait 1 year after your treatment has ended to then just review and have a conversation with you about maybe replacing that testosterone afterwards. They don't want that kind of cell proliferation to occur, and testosterone can potentially do that. So there are little caveats like that, but for the most part, if you're going to try it, they're going to start you on a fairly low dose. They're going to ramp it up if they don't see too much change, and you're going to pay for it on a monthly basis. And it's something that works really, really well for people. In terms of how it can affect erectile dysfunction, when we're looking at treatment here, shockwave therapy for blood vessels, it's like the actual hardness of the penis and the length of time that the erection can sustain for. Really, when we're looking at testosterone-related erectile dysfunction, it's more, the frequency of the erections. How often am I going to get these? So what you should really see is that first thing in the morning, erections improve because they are driven fundamentally by testosterone. And then what you should also see as well is kind of like the frequency of erections improving just as a matter of course, because the desire for sex and the ability to be aroused has improved. So it's not a case of the actual sort of blood vessels now working in a different way or anything like that. It's just that there is now more of a significant driver to get an erection, not actually changing anything about the erection itself. I hope that helps. Like I said, we don't actually treat anyone here with TRT, but if you do find that actually, once you fix that component, you'll then start to notice that there isn't quite enough hardness or sustained time to your erections as well, then that's absolutely where we come in. Book yourself a free call and we can have a little chat about it, but hopefully you don't need us and that sorts you out.